I went to the store and I got some change. My socks were dirty, so they had to change. I lost my money in the stocks exchange. A rhyme so good, it doesn't need to change.
Pregnant first, till I did change. Bought some salt and I got short change. Changing money on an interchange. Rhyme so good that they're never gonna change. Never gonna change. Never gonna change. Never gonna change.
Nah, never gonna change.
Okay. Back again.
Back at it.
Back with it.
Back on track.
And back for you. Back for you.
Well, let's put on some Burt Bacharach.
All right, so we have some stuff to talk about. It turns out, who knew there was a global pandemic going on? A bunch of us just had to change every way about how we operated our entire business. And in some areas, things are lightening it up. And it's getting back more towards normal-ish operations.
Yeah, we just had here in Oregon, June 30th was the no more stuff date.
Yeah.
Official no more stuff day.
So that's it. Now there's no cases of COVID anymore here, and we're all good to go. Yeah, everything's perfect.
I've just been licking almost any surface I can come by.
Yeah. So as a result, though, of all of this, we're now kind of rolling back a lot of those changes that we made. Right. We're not making people sit in their car anymore before they actually come into the shop. We are not actually taking people's temperature when they walk in. We're not making them answer our quick survey of all of the questions that we were asking everyone.
All that sort of stuff. Perhaps many of you have not been doing this for a while, but that's the Oregon
yeah, here in Oregon,
just had those going until very recently. So
yeah, we had to do it, and it's nice, part of the cool thing is like having gone through this now, it actually feels like just running a regular float center, which we've always over the years drilled in is not the easiest thing in the world. Now actually feels a little easier, a little less stressful, which is cool. And also a plus is that some of the things that we did adopt as a result of the global pandemic, we're actually keeping on. And we've decided, are either better for our operations or even actually just improve life for our staff or kind of make it easier to run Float On.
Yeah, we came out of it a little different than we went into it.
We're changed.
We're new people now.
We're reformed. We don't make silly jokes anymore. That was one of the things, just totally serious across the board now with our employees. That was something that they expressed.
Yeah. Float Off. That's what we've changed our float center name to.
That was a little too silly, actually. What were we even talking? What was the
we wanted to talk, we thought we'd come here today and talk to you all about some of the stuff that, basically, now that we're opening our shop back for, sort of normal, what have we decided to change from the way that our shop operated before? Because it's pretty different. It's this is all still pretty new. We're just about to actually pull the trigger and make these changes, but it's pretty decent. We're still going to come out of this whole pandemic into a new schedule and form of running our shop that's probably the most different from anything we decided to do in the entire 10 years leading up to the pandemic.
Everything's in pantomime now. We've decided to put our entire shop into silence rather than just kind of the inside the float tank experience. No, let's start with the small things. Let's start with the pantomiming is obviously a large thing. So. What are some of the small things that we decided to keep in place?
Small things, huh? Well, we had to make we up until this point have been giving people in-person walkthrough speeches every time they've come in.
Every single time.
And during obviously during this whole thing, we made a video so that people could watch it in their cars or before they came in and minimize that whole human interaction thing. And, it's been kind of cool. It hasn't been...
It's time to get off our high horse. We maybe weren't
against
the most...
videos.
A lot of people throughout the years have really been videos, pretty nice, actually. And we habitually have just not allowed our staff to
they steal your soul. You
engage in
can't
them.
be recording images of yourself.
Otherwise, what's left?
And
we've changed our
We're
mind.
more open now. We're more open people.
Maybe videos don't actually steal the souls of the people who are pictured in them.
And mostly, it does just make the transition easier on your staff. It's just one kind of less time-consuming thing that you're trying to do during that sort of crunch time experience.
And the customers actually, we just got feedback from customers really actually liking the video intro too. I've heard from at least a couple people who said they watched it multiple times before coming in just to kind of make sure they had everything down and felt comfortable with the experience, and just kind of realizing that we can still do in-person walkthroughs if we want, but certainly having the video walkthrough available is just so nice. We're probably not going to be doing in-person walkthroughs, at least not a lot, for other reasons that we'll get to in just a second.
So maybe this is old news to a lot of people out there who have videos already, but just something that we kind of came out of this whole experience a little different.
If, like us, you were previously a video curmudgeon, give it a second thought. Okay, videos. We also did some cool upgrades to our HVAC unit, which we didn't know were possible really before the pandemic. I think we actually talked about this on one of our last podcasts that we did, which is a while ago now. But it's cool and a really nice addition, which is adding UV light to your HVAC unit. And what that does is, of course, helps scrub the air, helps clean it, kind of make viruses and bacteria not able to reproduce, and helps keep your shop just healthy. But it also is great for controlling mold and mildew, which I promise in the wet environments are going up into the air and through your HVAC unit all the time. So honestly, had we done the research beforehand or even realized that was an option or how well it did with mold control, I really think that the UV lights inside the HVAC is just a really great solid float center upgrade.
Yeah.
No regrets.
I mean,
I'm not looking back.
It'd be really silly to go in there and rip it out at this point now that we have it. So that's sticking with us.
But I would have gotten it even before the pandemic is what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, we all would have gotten all sorts of things if we
I'm telling the truth. Don't you come at me like that. It's a really good upgrade. It's not just that it would cost us time to tear it out. I would have had it there voluntarily, even if it wasn't already there.
We also we ended up picking up one of those electrostatic sprayers, and
yeah. If you don't know where to get them, almost every big city has some kind of bridge with someone dealing them under it. So,
you put the whole sort of idea is that it adds a sort of electrical. You put your sort of disinfectant spray into it, and it adds an electrical charge that static electrical charge that makes it sort of the mist kind of cling to things even at a slight curve behind the surface you directly sprayed it at. So if you sprayed it at like a grab bar, it would be able to actually adhere to even the back of the grab bar is the kind of idea behind it.
Yeah, it uses less disinfectant, gets a really even coating. Kind of the same principle as powder coating, if you've ever seen how that works. But powder coating a surface, same thing, electrical charge, and this paint just kind of flies onto it and evenly distributes. Same thing, but with disinfectant.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we didn't realize thinking about it before, that once we had it, it's just kind of a little nicer than using a spray bottle. You're doing just a whole bunch of actual manual spraying if you work in a float center. And that's just a lot of wrist action. And our staff just was it's kind of nice to just be able to have an automated sprayer. And you can even turn off the electrostatic part of it. You can just use it as a auto mister spray gun. And just that alone actually turned out to be sort of a nice little upgrade.
Yeah, so definitely keeping that. Just a quick word of warning, definitely look into actual safety protocols with those and protective gear that you should be wearing, because part of being electrostatically charged is, of course, it wants to cling to you and your eyeballs and everything like that, too. So, very important to you're using this kind of upgraded protection if you're using the electrostatic sprayer. But even with that, it seems just so much more convenient for our staff that it's definitely staying on board.
And probably the biggest thing we've done is just the actual just way our schedule and staff and transition sort of timing looks now is pretty different than it did beforehand or than ever in the history of us running our float center.
So yeah, big changes brewing, and a lot of it came from the fact that when we switched over to this kind of lengthened pandemic schedule, we were only running about half the floats that we normally run, and we'd actually switched down from a 2-person schedule to a 1-person schedule to both kind of keep our staff more separated and also just keep the fewer interactions going on in the space in general. And I think that 1-person schedule is something we're going to try to keep.
Yeah, I mean, essentially the kind of short version is just that we decided to lose a couple float spots over the course of a day in favor of longer transitions that could make it so that just a single person could run our entire shop.
Yeah, so prior to the pandemic, we were doing half-an-hour transitions with 2 people on shift and 6 tanks. And now we're going to be doing...
And those were all 6 running on the same schedule. So we would like do a full 6 tank turnover in 30 minutes.
And so now for most of our turnovers, we're going to be doing about an hour. And we're actually just kind of staggering things by a little bit. So we're doing kind of groups of 2 and then staggered by 5-minute start times. So not everyone is going to be getting in at exactly the same time, but for the most part, it's going to be within the same 15-minute window. Everyone is still arriving, but hopefully just with that understanding that, we don't have kind of that order of people getting in and people waiting and stuff like that. We can just make them a little more smooth for that transition.
Yeah, I mean, essentially we're like, okay, if we have one person running, we talked about more significant staggering and 3 tanks on the even hours, 3 tanks on the odd hours, stuff like that. We have a little bit of trouble with just like the level of soundproofing between certain rooms and certain other rooms in our shop, that where between like this room and that room, you can kind of hear the pump from room 5 into room 3 type of situation.
Just for example.
Yeah, not to name any names here. But, as a result, it was just really hard for us to kind of strategically figure out that full stagger. And also it was just a little bit harder with a one-person operation to not have the day just feel like nonstop. If you're just like doing a turnover constantly and there's always people floating and you never have like any amount of a little bit more sort of downtime periods. So we switched to that more idea of like, let's just do our normal all tanks on the same schedule and a longer transition so that we could do it with one person, and then kind of tried to figure out where we could make slight strategic gains in that. We're like, okay, well, if we can just start the appointments like just a little bit of a stagger, like 5 minutes off from each other, that little bit is enough to like, make it just a little bit calmer when people come in to check in, or when we're going to clean up afterwards. It's such a small tweak, but it will actually kind of help make things more manageable. And we might have had to do something more like, I don't know, like an hour and 10, hour and 15-minute transition or something if we were not trying to get those little extra staggering kind of gains in there.
Yeah, and another one of those too is when we're switching out staff members, so it's going to be mainly one person at a time in the shop, but of course we do have to have this employee changeover. We have different shifts throughout the day, and during that transition time, we're actually going to go down from an hour-long transition to 40 minutes because we will have a second person on hand to kind of help with that process. So again, just kind of squeezing out those little extra minutes in the day wherever we can, considering that for the most part it's going to be this lengthened transition. Just one person going down from the shortest possible transition we could manage and 2 people constantly on shift.
And so for us, it still just made a little bit more sense to keep our all of our tanks kind of tight together in terms of their timing. The transitions are a little bit easier when you can just like make a bunch of noise and get everything done, and there's not like other people, really coming in and out of the shop that you have to worry about too much. And it also means that you have this sort of concentrated time while people are floating without something else going on, where people could still, take a break or eat their lunch or something like that, as opposed to just like, hey, you only ever have like 23 minutes between some event happening throughout the entire day, which, stuff like that's easier with 2 people when one person kind of can just leave or do something for a minute while the other person is still holding down the fort. But with one person, we wanted to still find those sorts of kind of comfortable spots in the schedule for people to not feel like the whole day is just a marathon.
So obviously we've had to do some kind of contortions to make this work. It's probably the single biggest change that we've made to our schedule in all of our years of being open. And we're doing it because there are some notable benefits to it, for sure. Probably the biggest one is just the lowered cost of, having one person on shift versus 2 people on shift. Actually means that we can keep up a little more with like what we believe our pay rates should be.
Yeah, we ran the numbers, and one person is half of 2 people. So it's pretty significant. Huge difference.
So it just helps, being on the like very profitable side for a float center is challenging. And to me, one of the worst parts of that is that it means you can't pay your staff as well as you'd like sometimes, especially when you need to be saving up for salt damage and everything that can go wrong with float tanks as well. So this is like one of the ways that we're trying to get at that goal of both having, a sustainable float center that has a good nest egg that's growing, and also that we're treating our employees in a way where we feel like they're getting paid what they deserve for the type of work that is entailed in actually running and managing a float tank center.
And honestly, I mean, it's just easier having a smaller crew for running a business. We get really caught up in this like growth mindset, and there's sort of like almost a point of pride about having like more and more employees. But the more people you have in your business, the harder everything gets, right? Like communication
more
becomes
problems.
harder. Interpersonal relations, like there's just more like all sorts of different interactions and people to deal with, and people's personal situations and all that sort of stuff. The more people that you get, and when you have less people, not only is it a little simpler and people can more easily be on the same page as each other, but you can kind of treat people a little bit nicer. I mean, we have like with the float conference coming up.
You and I are not going to be treating people nicer, but like
no, but
Jake and Marshall, our shop manager, can treat people a little nicer. Yeah.
Like with the float conference coming up, we're like, hey, we could offer like our entire shop staff virtual tickets to the float conference if they want to come, and now we have that's 6 people as opposed to like 12 to 13 people that we used to have. So you can kind of like make decisions like that to just do something nice for people a little bit, significantly easier than we used to be able to.
It was especially awkward with 13 people because a lot of the kind of popsicle containers come with only 12 popsicles. So it's like we didn't have enough money for 2 of them. So it's like, oh, sorry,
Yeah, there was dark times.
So that's it. That probably is the single biggest thing that we're keeping out of this, which is kind of wild. For a long time, it really seemed like we were just going to kind of carry on forever with this 2-person schedule. So yeah. I'm kind of shocked that we have made that shift. And
we are losing floats. I mean, I guess we should mention that part too. So we used to be able to do a maximum of 10 slots over the course of a day.
So 60 total floats.
Yeah. And that was running at 24 hours a day. And right now with our current schedule, that would drop to 8 slots. So we kind of lost 12 floats to, 20% of our total capacity for making this switch.
And we just kind of think that's okay as well,
Or at least hopefully that at the end of the day, the numbers will work out better. Like, we will be able to, in terms of actual the income above expenses, make the same or if not more, and be able to pay the staff that we have more.
And we weren't at 100% capacity, so our customers might not be able to find as convenient times all the time for them specifically to get into float. But I would expect that for the most part, if people still want to schedule a float, a few days ahead of time or anything like that, it should still be, a few open slots. And maybe just requires a little bit of extra scheduling ahead, like we mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to float more, just bring your own staff member with you. That'll be our new program.
Yeah. Anything else that we want to share for coming out of the pandemic?
Yeah, we'll see how this goes. I mean,
yeah, that's true. We haven't actually done this. I mean, we have been on a 1-person shop schedule for the last year.
Yeah, and honestly, it even made it so that during all the restrictions and the greatly reduced schedule we had during the pandemic, our finances were able to sort of make sense still.
Yeah. And our schedule, especially for the last about 6 or 7 months, has actually been pretty packed. Again, half capacity, so you can kind of only pat yourself on the back so much for that. But certainly the 1-person schedule seems tenable, even if there's 6 people going in, 6 people coming out, 6 people going in, 6 people coming out, even when it's slammed. With a long enough transition time, I think 1 person can definitely get through that. So.
And if it goes well, I think our plan is probably to have our
down to one of us.
6 remaining staff members form together like a Voltron into one single super staff member.
You were going to share that with them, huh?
Oh, sorry. The patent pending. Don't get any ideas about the Voltron thing.
Just pretend the last part of this podcast didn't happen. 1-person shift schedule, though. That's exciting. And I guess let's just wind it down there and run down to the patent office real quick. Make sure that thing gets pushed through. Yeah, we got to go. We got to go.
To take care of. We'll talk to you guys later.
Bye, everyone.